businesses are craving actionable insights from their data. Seen it a lot in the industry lately, a lot of posts on social media, people are sharing that. How does A3i go beyond data gathering and deliver tangible results that drive better decision making in the enterprise?
What Aparavi does differently, and it's enabled because of generative AI, is what the techies will call RAG, so retrieval augmented generation. That's how you take an LLM and all the power that everyone's getting out of ChatGPT and all of these LLMs. We're taking that amazing technology and then combining it with your own proprietary data. So this is how you're able to get into your company's information in a completely different way. All of the amazing questions that we're getting asked through prompting is now being able to be pointed directly at your specific company, your specific data. And in that way, Aparavi is making that capability fast, seamless, easy to install, and all of that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say is different.
So someone mentioned to me last week that they're struggling with overwhelming data and lack of the resources to manage that data. How does Aparavi address this fear and empower companies to turn data into a manageable asset?
It's complicated because you need someone who can interpret it and understand it, one, and then do all of the processes and connections and transfers and joins to then have some sort of analytics. And so that is the core Aparavi capabilities, right? Being able to do that for unstructured data specifically. Because there's a lot of tools that do it for structured data, and that's where all the big cloud companies came into the scene. But having that capability in unstructured data is unique and is a white space in the market, and that's where Aparavi was built. Yeah. So if I was to flip that into a punchy kind of answer, I would say the reason why it takes so much effort is because there is so much data, and it is a fairly complex thing. You need data experts, you need data scientists, data engineers, data pipeline, data analysts to construct and make value out of that data. So it doesn't surprise me that a lot of people are afraid of it because it's expensive and it's complicated. That's where Aparavi's platform was originally built for. I think there's a lot of tooling for structured databases and stuff like that, but getting a hold of your unstructured data, understanding the footprint, the estates overall, being able to do basic analytics on that kind of stuff was kind of hard to do. So that's where Aparavi's original core platform came into play. And now with AI and all of these tools, that generative AI is, let's be very clear, is unstructured data. It's text going into this LLM. And Aparavi is uniquely positioned for that because we built an entire toolkit just for unstructured data, and generative AI falls right into that lane.
You know, we're touching on a lot of use cases here, and we're going through a lot of problems that customers are facing. And I want to touch on one of the more important ones, right? Data breaches and compliance fines. They're major concerns for CIOs and any C-level individual within the technology space. How does A3i mitigate these risks to ensure responsible AI implementation?
Yeah, it really comes down to, do you know what you have, right? A risk is a risk because you don't know, right? There's some calculation there. And with unstructured data in particular, the tooling wasn't really in the market, and that's why Aparavi is doing what we do. The tooling isn't there. And so the first kind of thing is understanding what you have, and that could be the size, the volume, right? The age of that stuff. And then the next level is the content. And once you have a good handle of the content in your side of your unstructured data, then you can apply all these classification rules, identifying where sensitive information is. So then you can begin the process of positioning yourself to mitigate risk, right? Especially as that data is floating around in all these different places, right? We live in this interconnected technological world. And so company data is flying back and forth everywhere. And the most secure thing from a risk perspective is to keep that all in-house. And that's it was a hard thing to do, obviously, until Aparavi, right? Yeah. We were able to build all of those intelligence capabilities and do it in a way where all of that data stays within your infrastructure and within your own company's domain. That's a key fundamental part of our DNA and our architecture and design, is your data to pull off all of these analytics that we're doing, to pull off all of the aggregation stays in your environment. So that's what I would say is in the risk. To summarize, from a risk perspective, knowing what you have is the most important thing. Having an overview of the size, age, all of that stuff is important. After you have that overview, you then go into the content itself, and when you understand the content, you can then build all of that security posturing, risk posturing, and now you can actually build a plan.
Yeah.
Beyond that, let's also start with we also need to address where is that data being hosted. When you're using different tools, different SaaS products, your data is now going to different places, sitting on other servers that other companies are managing. That obviously creates a risk profile. One thing that Aparavi does very uniquely is that we do all of these analytics and we give you all that software to be housed within your own infrastructure so it never leaves your domain. So those are two things, again, in summary. Is one, knowing what you have, identifying the content, and then when you have the content, you can then identify the risk as it revolves around PII, classifications, sensitive information, and then two, being able to do all those operations internally, in-house, in your own infrastructure.
So a lot of companies worry about consistently, efficiency, reducing costs. It's always a big priority, no matter where they can cut it, even if it's the trash bags, right? Like, it's where they do it. Any industry can deal with this stuff and kind of fix those issues. How can they leverage A3I to achieve those goals, unlock hidden value within their data, as well as improving efficiency and reducing costs?
The question is unlocking that data and that value with efficiencies and reducing costs. Time is money. Energy is money. If you're able to reduce those two things, that does have an impact on the bottom line of your company. So what we're pushing right now is enterprise by end of day, not by end of year, because it is a new space. You can hire out your own team. You can hire an expensive contracting company to come in and deal with all of the cross-team collaborations, cross-functional things, security posturing, privacy posturing, learning the AI operations, ML operations, and integrating that into your tech stack. That is all energy and time and smart brains that need to figure out that work. Aparavi, you start it up, it connects to your data sources, and all of that coordination happens automatically inside of our software. So we're going to cut out all of that prep time, all of that planning, all those stakeholder approval meetings, and we're going to compress that into a purchase for you, so that if you value your time and energy, going with an Aparavi route, which has already automated all this stuff, is going to be a massive value add in terms of operating, taking advantage of AI in a way that's cost efficient and time efficient.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, what we discuss, is they start this AI project. A lot of people are starting it. They have budgets for it now. And we catch them right in that swivel where they start to realize what they actually have within their data lake, right? Their data sets, and how do we get all this in there? And a lot of companies is what I'm worried about, like just from the outside looking in, is they're going to waste a lot of money because they're going to put all that data right into that enterprise AI model. It's not going to perform right. Yeah. It won't perform efficiently. And we kind of go back to a lot we talked about, in previous videos where it's, they don't want PII in there. They don't want, anything in there because of the risk part of it. But, if you're the owner of a company, you want that information readily available. You don't want to dig through your database, which is already, is a mess. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important for a lot of these companies to realize that we're helping, right? Like, it costs money to do these things, right? But it's going to cost you a lot more money and a lot more time. Yeah. So at the beginning, you might think you're ahead of the curve, but if you keep trying to build it in-house, you're going to be way behind.
Yeah, because delays are notorious. I mean, in every technology job I've had, in every ambitious technology project I've worked on, I would say, leadership with a great idea had that commitment and that timeline has more often than not slipped.
Yeah.
and I think that's that build versus buy decision that everybody has to make. And if you're a company owner or decision maker that values that energy and time and that organization, then sometimes finding the right vendor you can trust, who can offer the service in a fast, efficient way, that's going to have multipliers impacts on your bottom line and your business. And something that you mentioned earlier about the privacy component of it is, this gets a little bit technical, but when you do RAG, when you do vectorization of content, and getting that information ready for retrieval augmented generation, if you just sent over a bunch of text that was blocked out because you identified PII in it, that information all of a sudden becomes pretty difficult to manage in an LLM perspective. As a result, you need to filter based upon the user and the security and governance framework of the existing company. And we already have this because it's inside of your file permissions, right? When you go into a SharePoint, you're allowed to see certain information inside of your experience inside of SharePoint because you have file permissions. I will only be able to see my stuff. And so you can see the user is what determines what should come in and out. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we're building right now within our product. We wanted to remove a lot of that confusion and the permission security stuff by simply mapping to the end user and who has access to what documents. Yeah. And now that we have that line of sight and that mapping, you can use AI with the knowledge that the governance is already there because the mapping is already completed and it's already maintained by your organization. So that's another place that you just compress lots of security issues, privacy issues. You collapse that by being able to do this exact thing. And that's what we're bringing to market.
Yeah, and even touching further on privacy, this is the big point for me, right? When I think about our product, talk about our product, is employees of companies, we know them, we use ChatGPT, we use some models. A lot of places, a lot of employees don't know what they're putting into that software. Yeah. They can put in company private data where it's like why is this readily available to ChatGPT now? It's really important for a C-level individual, even a manager, to realize like that's not safe and it's not scalable. If they keep doing it, eventually it's going to catch up. I think having that in-house makes people think. It's your data, right? It's your data. You're asking questions on your data instead of asking a GPT model that's built on the internet what this means. So a lot of your data is possibly already leaked. A lot of the employees have already put PII data that you don't want out there into GPTs, into whatever LLM that might be out there. So That's my worry for people, and that's why I want to help people with this.
Absolutely. The moment information goes into GPT, it is not a database, query to get that information out and blocked. The moment it gets in, it is in a connected web of vectors, right? It's like a mathematical thing going on like 1,000 different dimensions happening. Mm-hmm. And so to your point of, if you're aware of how that technology works, you don't ever want sensitive information ever getting into it, because the moment it's in, you're not getting it out. And the cost of removing it, and there's different things that people talk about, like fine-tuning in the AI kind of space, in the generative AI space. Getting that information out is super costly, and it's like almost a losing man's journey. Mm-hmm. Making sure it doesn't get in is the important part. And as people are making queries into GPTs and all these different SaaS products that they're buying, they are putting the example that I think about a lot is if I copy information from like board meetings, right? So very sensitive conversations. If I copy the board meetings, throw it in and get a summary, I've technically just taken sensitive proprietary company data, dropped it into a SaaS product, which is hosted on someone else's stuff. And my questions, my information is now sitting in text format inside someone else's database. Yeah. That in and of itself is you literally dropping off. And I was talking to somebody who worked at a large consulting agency, and they put out a wide email across the entire organization saying like, hey, do not use GPT. They went to their IT guys and found out that like thousands of people had already been using GPT on the company network while on the job. And so a story like that's like, clearly that's a risk profile. And so this company chose instead to build from the ground up. Luckily they're large enough and had the budget. They built from the ground up their own entire infrastructure so that they were like, hey, we know they're in the consulting world. They are working with other people's sensitive information. Yeah. They decided to build an entire infrastructure so that all of their employees could use their infrastructure instead, because they were so aware of this private data getting leaked out by being copy and pasted into that little prompt, screen. And so that side little anecdote just clued me into the need for people, especially, depending on the industry that you're in, whatever your compliance framework is, it's better to avoid that whole situation. And the way to avoid that situation is making sure that all that data stays in-house on your own infrastructure. And that's what Aparavi is doing. A3i product is built so that all of those capabilities, leveraging all of your company data, proprietary data, you can unlock it with AI, and you can do it in a safe way, or at least in a way that's within your own domain where your own IT company or your own IT staff can manage that risk. Instead of sending that out to a SaaS provider, which is going to give you a terms of conditions, say, yeah, we promise that we're never going to touch it. And it's like, well, the moment it's theirs, it's like, if you give me, $100 and I promise to give it to you back, it's like, that's really all you're banking on, right? For me to make have a change of heart, or, anyways, that's kind of what I think about in that situation is, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and it just makes so much sense. Like, if people were to think about it, and I hope they start to learn from that, the company you just referenced, I hope they learn from it and understand it a little bit further, because it's a never-ending thing to have this enterprise AI model as well. Like, you have it forever. Like, you can train employees on it. It's going to cut so much time and so much cost. Like, it's not going to take your jobs. Like, I promise. It's just going to help. It's going to make things a lot better. And I hope people kind of start to realize that, and realize that GPT, when they're using it for that company data, it's not good. It's not smart. And once they build your own, it just sits there and anybody can use it.
Yeah. It's like my mom used to say to me, I don't mind you having fun and playing games and doing kind of dumb stuff. Like, as a young kid, I would like jump off of, things. But she was like, just do it in my backyard. Yeah. Right? She was like, that's fine. Invite all your friends to come over and play, because as long as I know you're in my backyard, I, as a mother, can feel good about you having fun and having the freedom. Yeah. And I think that's exactly how leaders inside of an organization are thinking about it. It's like, look, you're going to do stupid stuff, probably. Like, any parent and a teenager is like, you're going to do stupid stuff. I just hope that you do your stupid stuff in a place where I have some control, right? Where something bad happens, I can do something about it. The moment you're taking your data and putting it up with a SaaS provider on a monthly subscription, they're holding onto your data, and that risk, for the parent is outside of their backyard, and someone else is in control. And I think A3i gives companies the ability to take ownership of that again. Yeah. That concern you brought up about employees using GPT and getting information into other servers, a little anecdote about that. I was at one of the conferences, and I was talking to somebody who's leading technology at one of the large consulting firms. I'll kind of keep them private for now. Yeah. They put out an email saying, hey, don't use GPT. We are in the consulting business. We have people's financials. We are doing legal stuff for them. Like, don't do it. They went to the IT team and found on the network traffic within the company that thousands of employees are already using GPT. And they were like, well, cat's out of the bag. Yeah. So that security person had to make a big decision very quickly. And they were like, hey, we're not going to stop this. We're going to make this massive investment into building this whole thing internally at a large cost to them. But because they saw the value of AI, and because they saw how sensitive the data that their employees are working with is, they were like, hey, this is a strategic decision for us. But it's a massive cost. A3i is going to be able to give you that capability without having to run all those massive costs and do it from scratch by yourself. The platform is going to be set up in a way where you connect to your data sources, you leverage all of that company stuff, and because of our architecture, all of that ML ops, all of those servers, all of that data sits within your infrastructure, and you can get those AI capabilities, Gen AI capabilities, within the safety of your own environment. Yeah. And that's a key piece as we talk about AI security and permissions.
Yeah, it would be a game changer for everybody, and I hope that people follow suit with that company, because if they did that research, if these large companies start doing that research and look, who's using GPT, they're going to be shocked. Like, it doesn't matter what people tell them, they're going to be shocked. I hope that people do that eventually, and then they realize, okay, if they did it, we can do it. And if you don't have the time, if you don't have the budget, right, you don't want to do, we can do that for you. So we make it really easy. It makes it so simple.
I think another follow through with that is if you've got armies of developers who have free time and aren't already working on strategic initiatives, one, congratulations. Yeah. But two, if you're not that person, if you're not that company that's got so many resources available and these massive contracts available to get all this compute, it's you might want to buy versus build all that and buy someone else's experience and knowledge implementing these, rather than getting your small team to go ahead and figure that all out. And all of this being a capability you add to the company, not necessarily part of some strategic initiative to increase revenues, right, or lower costs in the company. But those are things that I would consider is the opportunity to buy someone's experience and to not have to go through all of that kind of bloody experience yourself, and move towards a software solution that handles it for you, so that you can move on taking care of growth in your business.
Yeah.